Today I'm going to be showing you how I built a budget powder coating booth. At the end of this video, we're going to be putting it to the test and we're going to be powder coating for the first time, and I'll show you those results. This video was made possible with a partnership with the Eastwood Company, my go-to supplier for all things powder coating. If you're interested in getting into powder coating, please check them out. They have all the stuff that you could ever need for your powder coating experience. Links down below. So I started planning my build out on a piece of paper, getting a rough idea of the size I wanted by measuring the space this booth would be living in, which is my garage. Once I got an idea of the measurements, I went to homedepot.com and started placing items in my cart. After I got all the material that I thought I would need in the cart, I just ended up buying it online and picked curbside pickup since it was being offered for free. But being in Florida, it rained when my order was ready to be picked up, which was about 3 hours after being placed. Regardless, I braved the weather and got everything loaded up and back to my house. My materials consisted of 8 2x3s, 3 white particle boards, 2 20-inch box fans, and 2 boxes of wood screws, 5 3-inch casters, and some white silicone caulking. I also purchased a few extra things to run 240 volt and outlet for my powder coat and my custom powder coated oven, but we'll save that for another video. Once I got everything unloaded, I decided to start tackling this build solo instead of waiting the next day for a friend to show up to give me some help. I probably should have waited because the majority of the work I did by myself, I ended up correcting the next morning. I was kind of winging it on how I wanted everything to go together, especially the framing. This led to miscuts and also a weird framing layout, which made sense that night, but it didn't really make sense the next morning. The next morning I decided to disassemble what I built. I just didn't like the way I had it framed out. The way the pieces were laying didn't really make sense. It looked a little weaker than it could have been. So I went back to Home Depot and I picked up those 2x3s. I also picked up some wood clamps, which helped me hold 2 pieces of wood together as I was framing it and screwed it in so it didn't back out. I then reframed everything and screwed everything back together to create a nice open booth. Once Lewis came over, we framed out the top and bottom pieces that connect the booth and installed the casters to the bottom. Once those were installed, we measured and cut the pieces for the top and bottom of the booth and installed them. I also removed the wheel from the 5th caster that I bought. It's going to be acting as a rotating hanger for all my parts to hang on while I'm powder coating. I just ran 2 extra pieces of 2x3 across the top of the booth and we anchored into those. Once we did a proper weight test, we moved on to cutting holes in the back of the booth where the box fans will go to pull the powder into the filters with OSHA approved footwear. We then ran a couple of 2x3 braces across the back of the booth, removed the back of the fan to create a more flush placement and increase airflow. We also flipped the top fan upside down and cut a hole so the wires and the power cord can run through it and it could sit flush on those braces. We did the same thing with the second fan and added a couple smaller pieces to help secure the wood better. We then moved on to caulking all the gaps of the interior of the booth and added a 2x3 brace for the shelf, and Lewis is still wearing Crocs. I then used masking tape to close any gaps around the filters, and we did a suction test. Finally, I added a 2x3 frame to the interior of the booth that allowed me to add an LED light strip to illuminate the working space of the booth. Also added a power strip to the outside of the booth to easily turn on the fans, lights, and powder coating gun with the push of one button. The next day we did a live stream and tested out the booth. We started with a bent Honda Grom front rim. Since we didn't have a sandblast or aircraft remover, we took the OEM rim and just scuffed it up after degreasing it and pre-breaking it. We wanted to see if the powder would stick and how it would look by just spraying directly over the OEM paint. So we used Simply Green to degrease it, pre-baked it, and then used Scotch-Brite to rough it up, and then we just sprayed over it. And baked it for 20 minutes at 425 degrees. Keep in mind we didn't mask this at all since it is a bent rim. We just wanted to test it. We wanted to see if the powder would actually stick without stripping the rim to bare metal. To our surprise, it came out looking very acceptable for a DIY job. There's only a couple spots that we probably should have done better. One where we hit the bottom of the oven and it knocked off some of the powder, and another part where I sanded down a little bit too much, but still overall not a bad thing for a white wheel. We then moved on to the second part, which is a drill hanger. We decided to spray that black to test that out. However, Lewis's greasy fingers touched one of the sides and it ended up showing up in the end results. Moving forward, a stricter and more fine-tuned process would need to be implemented, but regardless, the booth performed great. One thing I did change after the first test was the air filters. Apparently not all air filters are the same, and I went with the cheap Home Depot ones, and the powder passed right through those filters and onto my garage floor and everything else. On a second test, I purchased some MERV 11 rated filters, which I guess the higher the MERV rating, the better they are at catching smaller particles, and we did another test and it caught all the powder. Down below I have links to this entire build with specs. If you enjoyed this build, please let me know in the comments, or simply by hitting that thumbs up button, or maybe even a subscribe. In the future, I'm going to be doing another video on how I take this home double oven and convert it into a larger single oven for powder coating. Also, we have a sandblaster from Eastwood coming in, so we're going to be doing an unboxing and install in the garage. So if you're interested in that, or any of the stuff regarding powder coating, please subscribe because there's going to be a lot more DIY powder coating stuff on this channel. Some good things lay ahead. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions or comments, please post them down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Alright, say peace to the live chat.
Peace.
Say donate.
Donut.
Donut.